Hello and welcome to today's video. Thanks for joining me. Today we're doing a look using the newest palette that came out recently from ColourPop. It is the Precious Metals palette. I bought this during launch day and I looked at the colors on their Instagram page and I thought that has a good variety, a good mixture of cool tones, which I've been into lately, and then the warm tones, which I've always been a fan of, and it's combining the best of both worlds into one palette. I'm going to show you some up-close shots, but let's just talk about the packaging. Look how reflective this is. It's so cool, and it's that traditional cardboard material that they use for their larger palettes. So when I ordered this, I also added the Stone Cold Fox to my order because I heard good things about this. Have not used this, so I will do a look with this in a future video, so stay tuned for that. But today, it's all about the precious metals, and I wanted to do a mix of cool tones and warm tones today, so that's kind of the idea behind today's eye look. Inside this palette, I will show you the options. You have so many shades to choose from. The layout is really pretty, the shades, and honestly, you guys, this looks a lot prettier in person than it does in the promo photos on their social media pages. And what you see on camera, it doesn't do it justice in person. When I first opened this in the mail, I kind of squealed a little bit because this is so pretty and I cannot wait to use some of these shades. So I started just diving right into these colors and sort of mixing a few different cool tones with some neutral shades and then throwing in some kind of fiery copper shades. And I'm going to talk you through the entire look start to finish. So if you want to see this look, then just continue watching. To set my MAC Painterly paint pot, which I use as my primer in the shade Painterly, I'm going to take the lightest shade in the palette, or one of the lightest, in the shade called Feel the Chemistry. That is a matte ivory shade. I'm going to use a fluffy brush and sweep that all over the lid all the way up to my brow bone. To start off the crease, I'm going to take the shade called 100%, which is in the top row. It's one of the lighter shades for the transition, and it's a very light, very, very pale kind of beigey tan with a slight kind of cool undertone. And I'm going to use that same crease brush, and I'm going to apply this to my crease, going back and forth. To add a little bit more depth and start building up some more color, I'm going to hop down to the second row, first shade. This is the color called Too Much. And so this is what I have right now in my crease. You see how light this is? This is just a few shades darker and a little bit leaning into the warm tone. So I'm going to take a little bit of that again with that same brush. And I'm just going to layer a little bit of this right over the first crease color, just to start bringing in a little bit more warmth and definition to the eye. I really like this shade specifically, the Too Much. It's a beautiful transition shade that would work with any cool tone or any warm tone color that you choose for your lid from this palette, because it's not super, super warm, but it's not cool. It's kind of more neutrally, I guess, but it's really nice to add a little bit of a hint of warmth to the crease. I am now going to switch to a different brush. I'm going to use the BK Beauty 212 brush, and I'm going to go down to the bottom row, and I'm going to use the shade called Total Rockstar, which is a nice, somewhat cool tone brown shade. And you have two options if you want to do a brown, either of these two. This one is more of like an espresso shade, but this one is a little bit more of like a medium to kind of like a milk chocolate brown with a subtle kind of cool undertone. So I'm going to use that. And I'm going to focus this on the outer part of my eye, and I'm going to just do circular motions to buff this color into my outer V. As you can see there, you can probably pick up the cool tones that this palette has. So I'm going to take that shade and just kind of do a swirling motion just to keep it right on this outer part. And right now I'm just working on the placement. I'm going to come back in a moment to continue blending this shade. I'm switching to a smaller brush. This is the A502 from BK Beauty, one of my very favorites. It's part of the Angie Hot and Flashy collection. And I'm going to use this brush to clean around the edge and buff that line out a little bit. I'm not trying to pull this shade too far in. I really just want to keep it right on this outer V. But I also know that this, as you see here, needs to be a little bit more blended. So I'm going to use a clean brush for that. I'm going to take that shade Total Rockstar that I put on my outer V, and I'm going to use a small brush to apply this to the lower lash line, making sure that it connects right out here, the outer V portion of the eye. And I'm going to taper that very thin as I work towards the inner part of my eye. Back in with that A502 brush, and I'm going to blend a little bit more. I'm going to take this 100% shade here that I used to carve out my crease initially and apply some of that right beneath that dark shade to help soften this and just to pull it down just a little bit further. I'm going to start adding a little bit of color to my lids, and I want to use a few shades. So I'm going to start with the lightest one. I'm going to go to this shade here in the top row. This is the 4th shade, which is called Lustrous, and it's like an icy champagne pink. So it's this one right here. And I'm going to use a Morphe M709 brush, and I believe this is called the Pointed Shadow Brush. And I'm going to use that shade to kind of brighten this inner part right in through here. And I'm going to stop just shy of halfway with this color. And this brush from Morphe is perfect. I recently picked this up from Ulta because I was looking for a brush that was a little bit more pointed and still small to where I could get right in through here. Because sometimes when you're using your fingers to apply eyeshadow, right in this innermost corner, it's hard to reach. And if you have nails, it's even harder. So this brush is perfect. I'm going to link it for you down below because I feel like it's doing the job exactly what I need right in this inner corner here. And I have a lot of Morphe brushes that are years old and they are still in really nice condition and they still perform just as well as they did when I first purchased them. So I think for the price point, they can give you some really affordable brushes. On the outer part of my eye, I'm going to layer one of the warmer tones. Now you have a lot of options in this palette of some warm tones. You have some kind of orangey and gold shades, like right on this side of the palette. Here through the very center is a little bit more warm, kind of fiery copper shades, and then a little bit more on the cooler, icy type of vibe here. So I feel like it gives you a lot of options. So now the question is, which shade will I use today? So this shade here, Not So Basic, is catching my eye. The texture does feel a little bit different as opposed to the other pans. It's a little bit more on the chunky side. It has a bit of a glitter finish as well. And it's definitely more warm than what I have on my lid. So I'm going to try using the same Morphe brush to apply it. It does feel kind of crumbly when I put my brush, so that may be one that I have to use my fingers with. But I'm going to just kind of tap off any excess because the glitter may be a problem with fallout. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press this right onto the outer part of my eye, and I'm just going to do like a pressing and patting motion. Okay, so I dug my brush into it just a little bit more intensely with some pressure, and it does feel very creamy and it's moving around in the pan. So I feel like this is definitely one that needs to be used with a finger for the maximum payoff. But I'm just going to work with it and use my brush and just kind of pat. I decided to switch gears and go in with a little bit more of a reddish copper type shade. This one is called Minding Mine, and it's right above that shade that I have. So this is what I've got right now onto my outer V area. So I'm going one up to it, and they're kind of similar with that kind of reddish copper undertone. So I feel like it's going to be fine, because my concern with this specific shade, the Not So Basic that I have on, is as the day goes on and this sort of kind of dries as it's sitting on my lids, am I going to get some flakes to fall, because it is so crumbly and I just don't know how that's going to wear. So I want to kind of sandwich that in with something else. And I'm just going to pat this shade, and it's going to add a little bit more of that reddish vibe to it. And I'm just going to go from the center all the way out. Because my lids ended up being a little bit more intense and much more warm, kind of fiery copper than what I was envisioning in my mind today, I want to incorporate a little bit of warmth in the lower lashes just to kind of pull a little bit more warmth around this look. So I'm going to go to the shade called Lucky One, which is right beneath the shades that I've been working with. So these are my two lid shades. So it's this one here. It's that very warm tone, deep shade right at the bottom of the palette. And I'm going to use a little bit of that pretty close to the root of my lashes and blend that into that cool tone shade that I already have applied. And I'm going to just blend that out just a little bit. And I feel like doing this is definitely helping with the reddish copper tones on the lid. It's kind of bringing in those kind of warm tones onto the lower lashes, and I do like the way it's looking so far. I'm going to take a little bit more of the shade called Too Much, just to go around the crease shades, again with that 212 from BK Beauty. And I'm going to go right around the cool tones in the crease. For my brow bone highlight, I'm going to use the shade Feel the Chemistry, which is the first one that I use, that ivory matte that I used to set my eyeshadow primer. I'm going to take a little bit of that with a ColourPop brush With the same brush, I'm going to use it to highlight the inner corner, and I'm going to go into this kind of warm, slightly light, kind of golden shade here called Polished. Take a little bit of that and apply Polished to the inner corner of my eye. For eyeliner, I'm going to use a little bit of a brown gel liner. This is from Maybelline and an angled liner brush. This is the ColourPop E30 brush. Finally, some mascara. I'm going to go in with 2 coats of the CoverGirl Cleantopia mascara. And this is the final look, you guys. What do you think? I'm going to talk you through the blush, bronzer, the highlighter, and lip combo here in just a moment. But overall, the eye look, I feel like the liner and the lashes really kind of sealed the deal for me because I was mixing cool tones with some really warm tones. And I wasn't quite sure the direction that I was going to go with today for the eyes. I knew I wanted to do a mixture of some cool and some warm because that's what this palette is all about. I like how there's a lot of options in this palette laid out for you, and I feel like you can do so many different looks with this palette. It doesn't have to be a mix of cool and warm. You could do all warm. You could do all kind of more neutral, more icy kind of cool tones. I feel like this has definitely given me a lot of options for me to play around with and create a lot of different looks as I play with makeup off camera and in future videos as well. I like the package on it, so I just kind of want to give you some thoughts along the way as I've sort of been thinking about what I like about this palette so far. And like I said, this is my first time using the palette, but I have had experience before with ColourPop eyeshadows, and I really love the 1111 palette. If you have not tried that one, I will link it for you. It is amazing. So that's what prompted me to buy this when it launched on the first day that it was available. I'm pretty sure this is still in stock, the Precious Metals, but I do like how you could, to keep it simple and keep somewhat of the guesswork out of the look, you could just go from one row or one column all the way top to bottom and just go all the way down. Not necessarily rows across, but just going down, and you have all the colors within that same sort of color family to keep it simple and easy. Some people may look at this and like the options, and some people may look at it and think, where do I start? So that's a good guideline. Start from the top, work your way down each column. And then the more you get comfortable with a palette this large, you can start sprinkling in some different shades, kind of bopping around from one column to the next, one row to the other. Kind of like I did today, just playing around with it just to see the look that I was going to create. And I knew that it's going to be able to wash off easily at the end of the day. So what does it matter? You play with it, have some fun. But I do feel like the mattes were really great so far in this palette. The only issue that I had was that sort of coppery shade that I used initially on the outer V. It was a little bit thick, crumbly, and it was just falling apart. So I do think that the finger method of application is best for that, and maybe honestly using that method for some of the more foiled shades. So if you look closely at this palette, you may be able to tell the difference between, let's say, like the ones that I used today, and then there's like some right here. This one looks a little bit more chunky and more hard pressed in there, like it could be very crumbly, as opposed to maybe the one right next to it, or maybe this one that's more of a traditional kind of shimmer slash metallic feel to it, even some of these. So you will tell a difference between the different textures and finishes in this palette. So I feel like it would be easy for me to look at it and know which ones I need to use my finger and which ones I feel comfortable using a brush. But I do like how it's laid out. I like the colors, the names are pretty cool, and I feel like I can do a lot of looks with this. So if you want to see more with this palette in a tutorial, let me know. Drop me a comment down below and I will be more than happy to do that for you. But now let me talk you through the rest of the face. So for my complexion, I am doing a L'Oreal combo for foundation. So I started off with the True Match Hyaluronic Skin Tint, and I mixed in the True Match Super Blendable Foundation. This is too dark and this is almost exactly my shade, so I kind of mixed the two, and I've been doing this combo since I posted that video, since I've been testing out these skin tints, and I do love the way these two look together, and they wear so beautifully. My concealer is an old classic. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's the Maybelline Eraser Concealer in Fair. I did do a little bit of baking with the Maybelline Loose Fit Me powder in the Fair Light shade. And again, everything is going to be listed and linked for you down below. All of my products for brows are also from the drugstore, super affordable. But let's talk about bronzer and blush. So bronzer is the Silky Matte Bronzer from Milani in the shade Sunkissed number 02. For blush, I try to play it safe, nothing too cool and too bright, but nothing super warm and really deep. So I ended up with the Milani Luminoso. I had this little mini that was a free gift with purchase a while back. So this is the classic baked formula that they make and their formula for baked blushes is some of the best that I've tried. Luminoso is that kind of shimmery, luminous, peachy color that I feel like helps pull in some of the warmth from the lids and really kind of add a little bit of color to the skin without it being too bold and intense. It's a much softer, kind of scaled back golden peach shade, which I think is really pretty and blends beautifully. And my highlight today is from Physicians Formula. It's the Butter Glow Pressed Powder. This is the Translucent Glow. So this is not named a highlighter, but it does have a shimmer finish. So I think that it's ideal for highlight, and it's a little bit softer. There's a glow, but it's not super intense. It's not super bold and bright and over the top. And I do like the way this is kind of marbleized. It's really, really pretty and just so interesting to look at. And it does have that typical butter scent to it. And that's pretty much it for the face. And again, everything is going to be listed and linked for you down below. For lips, I kept it super simple, and I went with one of my all-time favorite lip liners from the drugstore. It's the NYX lip liners. These are the pencil ones that you have to sharpen, so they're wooden sharpenable pencils in the shade Peekaboo Neutral. I lined and I filled entirely, so that's the base color that you see here today. And then to keep it kind of easy as well, I decided to top it with one of the lifter glosses from Maybelline. This is the shade called Ice, and it's just a soft, it looks like a pale pink with a bit of a sheen to it. You don't really see too much of the sheen. It's mostly just the intense glossy finish and that smooth look to the lips, which I love. So I feel like these two kind of go again with that kind of easy look for the cheeks and just letting the eyes really shine because they're kind of intense for today. And that's pretty much it. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for being here, for watching. Be on the lookout for more videos using that palette, some more drugstore content coming your way. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Hit that notification bell so you get notified when new videos get posted. I post every Tuesday and Friday. And of course, you can follow me and be friends with me on Instagram. It's here on the screen. You'll be the first to know when a video is posted live on the channel. I hope to connect with you there. Take care, you guys, and we'll talk very soon. Bye-bye.